Hello everyone and welcome to the Pokemon Masterclass. My guest today is back for round 2 and I had to get him back on the podcast because he has accomplished something pretty remarkable in the world of Pokemon card collecting. He has officially caught every single World's Trophy card ever produced, believe it or not. So please welcome back everyone for the second time, the unequivocal #1 English Pokemon card collector, David Persin. David, how is it going, my friend?
Man, it's going great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here. I'm going to say a couple things real quick because I always do, and I just like to throw you off a little bit early on in the broadcast. So #1 is pretty remarkable, Shad. I don't know. Can we go a little further than that? Can we say maybe once in a lifetime kind of thing? I mean, it's, I don't want to undersell it or anything, but I don't think it's possible. Who's calling me? I can't. Let me just turn this off. This is life as it goes on. Okay, sorry.
It's so popular. I'm sure the phone has just been ringing off the hook for you recently, David.
It's nonstop. A lot of people looking for money, which is unfortunate. Old relatives, people don't even know who they are. So, it's good to hear from everybody. But yeah, thank you. It's really been a long time, a long journey, a tremendous thing when you're dealing with quantities of cards that are 3s and 6s, and that's it. To be able to really have one of every one, I'm really excited, proud. I'm happy to be with you. I'll say one more thing because then eventually you won't let me talk, so I got to just get it out early and often. So here's the thing. Do you ever watch like Saturday Night Live and they have like the Hall of Fame, the people that come back 7, 8, 10 times? It's a little bit of an older show than for your generation, but maybe I can start to, rank up those numbers with you. And eventually I can be like that 7-time returner who people say, oh yeah, no, he's definitely in the PokéNav Hall of Fame because of the number of times he's been invited on the broadcast.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm very familiar with Saturday Night Live. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it was after like their 5th or 6th time. Didn't they get like a jacket? Got like the golden jacket or something after so many
I don't want to
times?
obligate you though. I don't know what kind of budget you have for the channel, so don't worry about that. Let's just create it and say I'm in it and I'm good with that. Okay.
Well, David, I tell you what, it's never a dull moment with you. And chances are I'll have you on several times in the future because we seem to always have something new and exciting to talk about. So I guess the best place to start off here today. So many people out there are probably familiar generally with what trophy cards are. But if you wouldn't mind providing, the wider audience out there a little more background on the World's Trophy cards in particular and exactly how those were given out, who they were given out to, and just to give a little context on exactly how scarce they are.
Yeah, and I learned this the hard way when I started to really pick up the hobby after my initial beginnings in 2004 or so when I bought some collections. It was still in 2004, 5, and 6 when I did not know that a trophy card existed. I thought that the winners of the World Championships were given a finalist card, and that's what you got, those stamped cards that people are so familiar with these days. Finalists, semifinalists, top 32, etc. And so I ended up paying some outrageous amounts for the early years because I thought I was buying the best card that could be bought at that time. So I lay out $5,000, $6,000 for a $500 card because I, learned the hard way. And only to find out, 5 months later that there are these other cards called trophy cards that were actually one-of-a-kind cards. There was not duplicates or multiples given to the people participating. And they were going to the top 3 finishers at the World Championships wherever they were held every year. And there are 3 divisions that play in Pokemon. There's the junior, the seniors, and the masters. And the juniors are the youngsters. The seniors are probably, I don't know these years, but maybe they're the teenagers, so to speak. And then the masters are maybe from 17 or 18 or something like that older. Again, I'll be off a couple years because Uncle Dave only has a limited knowledge of any of this stuff. Hard to believe. So each one of those in the juniors, seniors, and masters would win a first, a second, and third place trophy. And for whatever their place was. And that was it. So there was 3 of each that were given out and nothing else. Fast forward to, and these are special art cards. You would go to Worlds and they would be in glass cases there, showing everybody what you could win, and people would hover around them and be so excited. And they would come in acrylic card cases or whatever. Well, fast forward, and I think it was 2013 or so that they went to a fourth place in that year. So they started adding a fourth place, and they also started giving to the video game participants as well. Same breakup, juniors, seniors, and masters for the video game folks, and ironically the same cards. And it was awkward because the same cards would say the same things. If you won this, it says you're allowed to come back and participate in the trading card championships the following year for the video game folks. So they didn't even change the text on the cards.
Wow.
And then going forward later, from then on, it stayed with fourth place. And then shortly thereafter, they went to the full art. They changed the art on the cards, and I think the language as well. Because you'd think I'd have actually looked at the cards and read them, but I probably actually have not in a long time, even though I was showing all of them yesterday or whenever I did the broadcast. So, so then going forward, there was a fourth place and a doubling of the number of cards. There's 6 of each of those that exist, that were distributed in the world for the championships from maybe 2013 to 2019, the last time that we had Worlds.
So when you say there was 6, so was there 6 copies of first through fourth? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, so for example, if you wanted to get a first place trophy from any of those years, you would have had to acquire it from the junior, the senior, or the masters winner for trading card game, or the junior, senior, or masters winner from video game. So there'd be 6 total copies from 14 forward, and I'm always off a year. I'm going to say 13 forward because I always screw up by year. 2013 forward, 2012 and before, there are only 3 copies of each of those, and only up through third place, not fourth, because video game was not involved and they didn't produce for that fourth place finisher in those prior years.
Amazing, amazing. And I think, David, this truly highlights just how scarce these cards are. And it's amazing to me, even for myself, I'm a little bit, I'm not quite as knowledgeable when it comes to these World's Trophy cards as I am with other trophy cards out there. And I think the larger community is probably in a similar boat. And we don't truly understand just how scarce these really are. So is that really what we're looking at here? Is really 6 cards that were produced in the entire world? Is that the kind of scarcity that we're looking at?
Yeah, and this will be the greatest question you ask me all night. So the nice thing is we're going to go from here. We're going straight down, but I appreciate it because you've captured the moment in a great question. So I spent years going to Worlds and buying these cards and making contacts at Worlds that if I didn't buy them, I might buy them 5 years later, 10 years later when somebody was ready to sell. And at the time and through all the years, I've been told over and over again, these cards are worth nothing. No one wants these cards. And I've been told this by the biggest people and the biggest YouTubers in our industry, people that today still are, for whatever reason, convinced that the cards are worthless. And these are the same people that are selling 39, copies of a 39, whatever the Japanese trophy is that's worth $1 million or whatever. And again, because that demand is so strong in Japan for those, and not only in Japan, but for those Japanese cards, but they've all along said these are worth nothing. And I've said there are 3 of these. 2004 to 2012, there are 3 in the world. There's not 6. There's 3. This is the least amount of a distributed card that Pokemon has ever put out in any form. We know about the one-offs. We know about, the recent Blastoise that sold for $300,000 or $400,000 that had a magic back or those kinds of things. I don't follow it that well. I'm sure you do much more. There was, again, one-off errors that have been made where they've got I think it was a Blastoise or a Charizard or something that was non-holo that should have been holo that was several $100,000. And I'm not talking about it from the value monetarily. I'm just trying to give a contextual, reference to the fact of people's understanding of how scarce those cards were. those were not supposed to be distributed, right? They're
Hmm.
prototypes, they're errors, they're whatever. Like my pre-release Raichu. How much is it worth? Who knows? Because there's only one, two, or three, whatever they figure out is out there that exist.
Hmm.
These were supposed to be distributed, and there were three. They were supposed to be distributed in 2013 and forward, and there were six, and that's it. So yes, these are the most limited issue that of a card that Pokemon has ever put out.
And what I love about this is that one of the common disagreements within the hobby is what is the value that we can place on cards when we don't know the actual supply of many of the cards that are actually produced. There could be, footlockers or storage units full of these cards out there that are going for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But here we have an actual quantifiable number, strict data point that we can go off of, and we can say here, this is it. Yeah, like you said, there are some one-offs that shouldn't have been produced, but those in the end may be even more valuable than the cards that were actually produced. But the fact of the matter remains, we have a number here that we can go off of, and that is really hard to come by in this hobby.
Yeah, it's I don't know how it flew under the radar for so many years this way. I really don't. I mean, again, even when the trophies became more known, and they're still not known. I've had people come to me in the last 48 hours and say, didn't even know these things existed because no one ever posts them and they're not out there. A
Hmm.
handful of more, knowledgeable collectors, what they've tried to do over the years is buy a first, second, third, and fourth place of these cards of any year just to have one of each in their collection, because it was really sort of not attainable to really get anything more than that, unfortunately, because I had sort of taken up most of what was out there in my collection.
Hmm.
But it's really where the interest came was in the art of the later years. These full art cards are gorgeous, beautiful
Hmm.
cards, but the older ones, no one really ever wanted unless you bought them early on because you just had it. Going forward, they didn't come out. There was too scarce to ever show up, and the art was not as nice as today. And then what sort of threw everything into chaos was this auction that just happened in the last week or two that finished with a 2006 number two trophy for $110,000. And I'm
Wow.
getting messages from all over like, did you see this? Did you see this? And again, I'm not doing this for the monetary gain. It's never been what has made me. People, how could you not grade your cards? What are you thinking? Why do I need to grade them? They're authentic. They're all
Hmm.
in near mint to mint, unless Pokemon messed them up when they handed them out to the folks, and I can't do anything about that. And
Hmm.
I like to display them the way that they have, and I don't need to pay any more money for them. I paid plenty of money to travel to Worlds every year, so I'm into them for a nice penny, right? So it's been a long time coming that they're finally getting some props from people as far as how scarce they really are.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I have to ask you, David, I know everyone out there is going to want to know this as well. How did this journey of collecting these world's cards begin? What I know you said that it was the art, but what really drew you into this particular area of the hobby from the beginning?
Yeah, I don't. The only way I can answer that is looking at me as a whole. I don't think it was a very specific thing. For example, when we talked last time, I might have said what drew me into the hobby in the beginning was that late night infamous purchase that I made, where I bought a couple of sets and wondered what did I do, and then I started from there. But I think after that, it becomes a personality trait. It's an all or nothing personality thing. It's an OCD, not maybe not formally diagnosed, but it's
Hmm.
whatever it is. It's a type A personality. It's a some people call it a completionist mentality.
Hmm.
So as I started, and this was again relatively early, 2004, 2005, I'm going through and I'm scouring eBay for things that I think are going to round out what I didn't have once I bought the collections that I bought to give me all of the sets that existed or the ones that I could get my hands on that existed. Then I started with the promo cards. And as you're coming through the promo cards and you get to be to the Black Star promo 026, like which was the 2004 Tropical Wind Worlds
Hmm.
promo, well, what do I need there? Oh, well, here's a Worlds card. but wait a minute, there's one that's got no stamp, then there's one that's got a stamp. What's that from? Well, then wait a minute, there's a top 32, there's a top 16, there's a quarterfinalist. Where do they come from? So no one was that interested in these things at that time. So you could still find them. They were expensive, but you could find them out there. And so I didn't start going. What made me go to 2006 Worlds? That had to be, I'm a very reclusive person. I am not not that I don't want to be social. It's very uncomfortable for me to be social. It's just who I am. I say to my wife, drag me out, get me out, because I won't if I don't. I'm more to myself. So what said to me, you're going to go get on a plane and, and let's go, honey, and let's go to the Worlds and see if we can pick these up. I figured maybe it was my best way of having a shot at getting them before they came to eBay in such limited quantities that I wouldn't have a chance at that point. And so that's kind of what propelled me in the interest in finding the best way for me to continue to acquire these things before everybody else would do it in front of me.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And, thinking about it from the perspective of the individuals selling you this card, probably going to be more apt to sell when they have spoken to you. They understand, what your purpose is. It's kind of like a pet almost. Like if your dog has a litter of puppies and that one of those puppies is going to a good home, you're probably more privy to let it go and to understand that it's going to be taken care of. Would you agree with that? Did you kind of get that same sentiment when you were at these Worlds and trying to acquire these particular cards?
Yeah, when you ask me a question like that, though, do I need to agree with you just out of common respect because you're inviting me on your podcast? Or can I say,
not.
Actually, there's nothing like that at all?
Of course not.
Okay,
No.
I just want to make sure. I don't know. I didn't really ask you for the rule sheet before we started. So, it was, I've had some instances like that. I really have, that they've understood what I'm trying to do and that I wasn't putting it back out on the market and that I intended to hold it and that I was trying to pay them as much as I could relative to market value so they would walk away feeling good. So that has definitely happened. And I will say to the other side, there's been many instances where folks have looked at me and said, who are you? And don't ever come up to me ever again because you shouldn't be here and you're bothering me. So, so I've definitely experienced the spectrum of reactions, but I have had many instances where people felt really good about where the cards were going. Yeah.
No, and this is exactly what I wanted to dive into here today, because I've actually had people reach out to me over the last couple days and ask me or inquire with me, what do you think Uncle Dave went through in over the years in trying to garner these cards? So I have to ask you here today, Dave, if you would be willing to share. I would love to hear maybe one or two of like your most memorable stories from the past, from 2006 onward, in being able to acquire one of these cards.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many, and I have to be honest. One of the saddest things is, and I hope people believe me. Gosh, they all know that I'm pretty straight up when it comes to stuff. But I've been so consumed in the process, not just of Worlds, but in all of this for years, that a lot of those wonderful memories just aren't there anymore. I'm not a memory guy. Like, I'm not a details guy. I mean, I always joke at my work when I do my job, I don't know how much I get paid. I let my partners make sure I'm paid right. I put my head down, I do the work, and I wake up and hopefully reap the rewards of that work. Same thing with my stuff here. So it really has to be kind of memorable to even give you a flavor for it, right? Because I just don't have the details. So a couple ones that stick out were, it's very, very hard to acquire from a Japanese player. So that's one part of what I'll say. The Japanese players have so much, there's an inherent respect, there's an inherent feeling of pride that comes with winning a card. And so it very rarely do they ever part with them once they win. It maybe years later they might, but very rarely when they win. So I've had some folks over the years who have been kind of mentors to the Japanese population that are there, a lot of maybe the master's kids. And so they would speak both languages, and they've gone to bat for me to where at one time I ended up in a Japanese kid's hotel room, a master's winner, probably maybe a 19 or 20-year-old.
Hmm.
And I remember up there where we could not communicate with each other at all, not a word. And yet the gentleman was between us and had gone to the player for me and said, look, would you like to sell this? He would really like to buy this card for this much money, etc. And and if you'd like to do that, then I would help you facilitate. I can vouch for him. He's a good guy. This is not a fake deal. This is a real thing. Would you be interested? And so so that's one thing that comes to mind. And the other thing was how many years I would actually have the iPad in my hand, using a Japanese translation program to even try to talk to the folks as I was there, because I didn't speak the language and didn't know how to continue to broach the subject in a way that was like, who is this guy? And I have no idea what he's saying anyway. So,
Hmm.
so that's one story. Should I go to another one?
Well, it's
Go
so
ahead.
interesting because, that's the other thing is this hobby, and especially the competitive world is so vast. It spreads across the entire world. So that was what I was going to ask you too, is depending on the winner and what part of the world that they came from. I'm interested to hear how that varied, and you've kind of highlighted it here with the Japanese players being, more, proud or prideful of the accomplishment of really, having that as like the memorabilia from their win, from their championship. I'm also interested to know how that varied among the different divisions. So you masters are obviously a little bit older, but the different divisions, how you went about that. Because some of them, teenagers and of different ages. So I'm interested to see how that varied for you.
Yeah, this podcast better go big time viral, okay? Because this is it. What you're asking me and what I'm telling you is the secrets of a lifetime. So I hope you can figure out a way to get it out there on some platforms.
Well,
So
you know me,
or
Dave. I always try to dig deep.
okay, I appreciate that. Hence why we'll be doing the Hall of Fame thing one day sooner rather than later with me and the PokéNav channel.
That's right.
So the divisions are very interesting. It is almost never the case that you can buy from juniors. Very, very rare. It is because they are so young. Obviously, they make none of the decisions, only the parents would. It is by number two, a lot of parents, of young children are very protective, not only of them and that, but of the things they're winning. It's more memorable. Like it's sort of like when you're as a child, you win a trophy, but then like for baseball or football or whatever, cheerleading. But then when you turn 15, we're throwing them all out. Or when you turn 19, they're just clutter in a garage. So it's part of that mentality as well. And then when you layer a third layer on top of the juniors, and that is that now you put in Japan or a place where they're never going to be sold from, there's
Hmm.
no chance. There's not even a reason to walk up to anybody because it's not going to happen. I've had a handful of situations in the juniors where I've been able to purchase, and they've always been a USA type of player where, maybe I was offering $5,000 or something, and it was enough money that the person, the parents would feel like, hey, we'll keep the actual physical trophy and
Hmm.
we'll get rid of the card because it's just a piece of cardboard that can help our child get to college. Or and that can also depend very much on where the people are from, and where do they come from, money or not from money, and whether or not that money actually means something to them.
Hmm.
So folks that maybe not coming from so much privilege may be much more interested in that than another family. um, I'll finish out by saying seniors. So let's go to masters. Let me go to the other end of the spectrum.
Hmm.
Masters are young men and women that essentially can make their own decisions. So it really comes down to, a lot of them say, you're going to have me 5,000. I'm using 5,000 just as a random number. Every value is different, but okay, you're going to hand me this money for this card. I could really use this money right now. I'll keep the trophy. I don't need the card. Think about the video game people. They often care less about the cards relative to the trading card people as well. So who might care more about the cards just because that's where their life is coming from. But again, a lot of the trading card people, they're just players, not stores of cards, not collectors of cards.
Hmm.
But your masters, you have a lot more potential to acquire because these are older people that can make a decision when you approach them. Then
Hmm.
you layer onto that the countries. There are certain countries that don't sell. There are certain countries, the South Korea very rarely would sell. I don't know where Igor Costa was from. I've had wonderful interactions with him. So I'm
Hmm.
sorry that before, I think he might be here now, but before somebody will know immediately, but like not a mainstream. I want to say, I'm not going to make them. I'm going to make up, I'm going to throw out countries like an Ecuador or Peru or Portugal. I can't remember where,
Hmm.
but those folks were though he was interested in selling. So it made it easier. And then you go to the middle tier. The middle tier is your seniors. Your seniors are about half and half.
Hmm.
About half of them, the parents control everything. And the other half, the parents look at them, doesn't matter what the financial decision is. I mean, it's mind boggling. But since I don't control people, I understand they do how they do. They raise how they raise. But they're like, no, we don't make this decision. Our son is old enough to make this decision or daughter. We'll just ask him or her.
Hmm.
I'm like, what? You're going to just like, so, but it's because think about who's there. Think about who's winning these children who are intellectually amazing. They're usually very mature. They're just the top of the top.
Hmm.
And so they can make many of these decisions. They can collaborate with the parents to make a good decision. And some are like, no chance, I have no interest. And others are like, yes, I'd really be interested. Let's talk more about this.
Hmm. It's so interesting, and it's funny how that correlates, and it's so analogous to the sports world as well. You see kids that have grown up in Olympics, Olympic gymnastics that started as children. I mean, this is really the Olympics of Pokemon, and I've heard and I've seen a lot of stories very similar in especially the Olympic world to what you're telling me here now. And it's really amazing. And with my recent conversation with Omnipoke, who is he's a competitive player. He's also a commentator, has commentated at several regional and I think they're national events over in Europe. Hasn't done a Worlds yet, but he filled me in on just how expensive this whole endeavor can be for players. And it's really allocating funds for a lot of them that get them throughout the playing season and eventually to Worlds. So those costs, travel costs, can really stack up quickly. So if they've gotten to this level where they've won a championship, or if they've placed top of their particular tier, if you will, the offer for these cards can pay for an entire season, or as you said, could pay for a life changing circumstance, a life changing type of dream that they've had. Go to college, maybe get a car. If they're in the juniors, maybe get a car that they can drive back and forth. So yeah, I'm sure it can be life changing for many of these players.
And I've heard, I've only had a chance to interview a couple as I've only been on my journey for less, maybe a year now, or not even a year or so in starting up where not the journey of collecting all these things, but the journey of telling people about what I've been doing through
Hmm.
my YouTube channel and stuff. And so I've interviewed two previous winners, two folks that I previously bought the cards from. And it was really rewarding to hear that they did use the money. One of them was David Cohen, and he went and went on 2 trips his junior and senior year, both abroad, that he said were life changing and just amazing in his ability to capture other cultures and understanding that came directly from the funds that came from the card sale. And the other one, he's going to kill me because this is what my old man mind does, but it'll come back to me. But the other gentleman, who I'm sorry right now, I cannot remember, told me that, and he was an older player at the time, but he used the money directly to fund his wedding, which was a little bit thereafter. And it was
Hmm.
a wonderful wedding that he said would not have been made possible without the funds. So I always say when I'm out there, I'm trying to create wins. I could confidently say before the last 2 weeks, and I cannot say this anymore, but I could say it up till 2 weeks ago, through the entirety of my journey, that when I paid someone for cards, for the most part, for 99% of the time, it was a price that nobody else had paid or would pay
Hmm.
for. Even, things got listed for those prices or more on eBay, but they never sold for that until this recent number two sale. So it's something that I've tried to be very forthright and say, look, I think I'm doing right by you, but I am not a
Hmm.
pressure person. If this card means too much to you and it has sentimental value, please don't sell it to me, because I wouldn't
Hmm.
want to buy it under those circumstances.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's very reminiscent to me. There's this kind of zeitgeist that's going around right now in the community where it seems to be a lot of maybe animosity, maybe that's too strong of a word, but kind of a schism or a chasm that is building between what seems to me like collectors and investors. And very often the collectors view the investors as, just all in it for money. Their purchases and what they're doing is all about money. But I think we talked about this in the last podcast, where I really see the two existing symbiotically with each other, where the investors help the collectors help the investors, and very often, and I've talked to so many people that have reached out to me, and I've been able to do this in my life as well, where investing in Pokemon has also afforded opportunities elsewhere, where this idea that money is just being pocketed and it's like selfishly taken from another person, that is, in my experience, not the case. So many people who have given me stories of them doing something similar, of paying for a wedding, paying off student debt, building a business around it where maybe their spouse can stay home with their children. So many stories out there, and I think this also highlights that fact as well, where maybe from the outside in, somebody might be looking at this and saying, well, Dave is, taking away these cards. He's taking away these cards from these players who earned it and won it. But as you said, you don't pressure them into it. You're saying, if this has a strong sentimental value to you, then by all means keep it. But I'm also willing to give you the financial means to be able to have this card, so that you can do something even greater with it. And in the end, they still have their trophy. They still, that experience and that title will never be taken away from them. So there's so much more wrapped into it, and that's, again, one thing that I try to do my best on this podcast is really give people the 1,000-foot view, the more holistic view on how the entire community operates as kind of one big organism.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think one of the saddest parts of that schism that you refer to, that, and I feel it and sense it as well, and sometimes it's even to myself, that I sure wish I could buy a brand new booster box for $90 or $100 and not pay 150 or 200, right? I mean, I'm a brand, for the brand new stuff, shouldn't I be able to just, like any collector, buy that?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it comes down to people feeling a certain pressure. They feel like, well, gosh, I can't just collect. I mean, I've got my family in here today, and they're reading me comments on the video I did on the world's trophies. And one person says, so just to give you that dichotomy, one person says, how dare he? Ando, how can you not make him go grade every card? It's all about grading and value and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got someone else who sends something to me that says, you are, haha, me, the OG, haha, funny. Anyways, David, you're still the one. You're the true collector, because you don't give, you don't care, you don't give a, what,
Mm-hmm.
you collect, and that's what's meaningful to you, and you should be proud of that. And too bad people can't see that. So it's sort of like, I feel bad for the people who are meant to feel bad, because they can't just, relish in whatever it is they enjoy and own themselves. They listen to too much outside noise.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my tip of the evening from number one collector of English cards, Uncle Dave. Um, as a financial advisor, I talk to my clients all the time about shutting off the noise. Stay true to what you guys need to do to achieve your goals. And that's my job, is help you here's my navigate around and through all of that noise to make sure you stay right on course. Well, I do the same thing, folks. Look at me, look at my face. It's a little red when I do a podcast. Don't know if it's a nervous thing or maybe I have no neck. I don't know what it is, but I'm not really nervous right now. But here's what I want to tell you. Uncle Dave very rarely looks at Facebook. He very rarely watches someone else's videos. It is not because I don't care what they're doing. I'd love to know what they're doing. I get jealous. I get too jealous. Well, Uncle Dave gets jealous? Yes, I do. They have all of a sudden this beautiful display. Why isn't my display like that? They have 20 of something, I have one. Why don't I have 20? Mm-hmm. I can't do it. I call it to my wife. I say, I need to protect myself from the negative energy that would come from the noise. So with your collections, who's ever listening, the 4 or 6 people that would ever turn on and watch me right now, just enjoy them and don't worry about the noise and don't feel bad, because you should enjoy whatever you do and you should not feel pressured to go any other direction with any of it. And I know I got to let the host say something, but I'm going to throw one last thing in about this last card I just acquired from Norway. The gentleman Tord Reklev finished 4th place in 2019. I haven't pursued, I probably could have got this card for less money had I chosen to pursue some of the video game winners, but I happen to know this person had won. And we've talked about it now for almost 18 months going back and forth on this card. But I refused to do anything until he was ready to sell. I said, don't test me for money. Don't test them. You can test the markets for money, do whatever you want. I want you to, it's your card, do whatever you want. But let's not start talking until you know that you're ready to sell. Mm-hmm. And so it took a while to get there, but eventually without that pressure, it got there. So
that's so amazing. You know, and that's what I love, is that you're really providing that bigger picture here. And the one thing that I do want to touch on, you know, on top of that, is that this last experience that you had with this gentleman from Norway, in the end, you know, he reached out to you. He said, you know what, I'm ready, I'm willing. And I think, again, people aren't looking at this of, we live in a world, as you said, social media, there's seems to be dichotomies everywhere. It's us against them, it's black or it's white. There's never that nuance. And that's what I love about talking to people like yourself or all of the guests that I've had on the podcast, is that's how this hobby operates. It's in that shade of gray. And very often, again, it takes all sides, the competitors, the collectors, the investors. And I really think that all 3 of those, that trifecta, has built this hobby into what it is today. And I also want to touch on this here, in that, you know, for a lot of people out there, if you're looking out there and you're looking on social media and you do have that jealousy factor, then you do need to step away. But then also for the people who are out there that are saying, you know, that there's influencers or there's people out there that it's not right that cards and boxes and these things are going for the astronomical price that they are. And I'm really talking about vintage here, and that it's not fair that they can't acquire those and that they're out of the price range of the vast majority. Well, it's very analogous. Dave, you're a financial advisor. It's very analogous to saying to yourself, well, it's not fair that I'm not able to have 10,000 shares of Tesla or 10,000 shares of Amazon. Well, where were you back when Amazon and Tesla were going for $5 a share, $10 a share? And I would put that out there to the community as well, is where were you? Can you honestly sit back and ask yourself, well, where was I back in 2016? Where was I back in 2015? All of these products existed. They were much, much cheaper back then. But that is the thing that people also have to realize. Early adopters, the people like yourself, like myself, that went out, that took the risk to garner these products. Everybody was telling you, Dave, you're crazy. These cards aren't worth anything. And you saw the intrinsic value in these cards. You took all the risk in the beginning. It's very analogous to the entrepreneur, where the entrepreneur is the one that goes out, that takes the risks, and if those risks pay off, they pay off big for the entrepreneur. And you could get into taxation and how the taxation is built to reward entrepreneurs, and it's kind of built to take away from the blue collar worker, but it's a matter of risk versus reward. And so that's something I had to say here today, in that really honestly sit back and look at the fact of, these are the type of people like Dave, like myself, who took the risks in the beginning, and they have paid off. For those of you that maybe jumped in when the hype was at its highest, it's the same thing with people who were trying to jump in when Tesla was at all-time highs, Amazon is at all-time highs. It's very, very difficult. And I think that's something that is being overlooked right now.
Yeah, and I also think let me add just two other quick comments to what you said, because I think there's two other ways that these folks can view this that may create some additional positivity. Okay. Mm-hmm. Number one is, sometimes luck is a part of it, right? I didn't start in any of this to make money. I'm not in this to make money. I started as a collector. I chose what I collect. Some people collect every Pikachu card, or are they looking for every collection card, every set card? So I didn't start for money. It happened to be an outgrowth of a popularity surge in the hobby where we've come today. Mm-hmm. But I want people to understand, enjoy your collection. Enjoy the pursuit of whatever it is you're going for, because that should be number one. And it shouldn't be the financial part if it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. The second piece of that is, never rule yourselves out of the game. You're always in the game. So whereas you and I could have been early adopters, somebody else a year from now, or today, or 2 years from now, is going to be an early adopter for something that's going to happen 10, 20, or 30 years from now. And so you've got to keep staying in the battle. You've got to still keep in the fight. I always joke, I'm going to be 60 in June. I want to be relevant. I want to be alive is good. That's a starting point. But after alive, I want to be relevant. And so, I care. I care when I answer somebody's message. Am I saying, hey, bud, hey, bro, hey, a bra, hey, how can I sound cool? Like, all those things mean something to me, right? Hey, brother, Logan Paul's older brother. So, stay relevant to whatever it is, to society, to changes, to technological change, to the hobbies change. And you can be, you could have been putting away evolution cases. I've got young kids that have come to me and said, I had this premonition. So I stuck away a bunch of evolutions cases, and look where it ended up taking me. So all of these things, you're in the game until you're not in the game. So even if you haven't been winning so far, stay in the game, and you might be winning before you know it. So
such a good point, Dave. Such a good point. And I think, again, that is something that is just not talked about in the hobby. Is there is opportunities. I say it all the time, but I don't hear it permeated, is that there is opportunities at every point in the game. And that, like you said, now is, maybe 1999 to 2003, maybe that was the golden age. We could very well be living in the silver age of Pokemon right now. And those opportunities are out there. You just have to stay persistent. You have to try to, expand your knowledge too. Expand your knowledge, get that from a variety of different sources, because overall, then you'll have that more holistic picture. And I'm so glad that you said that. And you're really the living embodiment of that. You've really been able to adapt and change over time, and you really have to have that in order to have this amazing collection that you do. That, I think, that's the hallmark of, whether it's an entrepreneur, a great collector, investor, what have you. It's being persistent and just, as you said, being relevant with the times. It's so great. So great.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. And I think you're right 100% as far as continuing to learn to continue to gather experience. I'm still out there, guys. I'm still out there. I just bought McDonald's packs, a lot of them. I just bought General Mills cereals. I've got every one of my 8 children trying to buy them at Walmart on sale because I think they might be worth something later on. I buy 3 or 4 cases, not a lot of any new sets that come out in case they pop later on. So I want to be a bit of an investor to help pay for the collection acquisitions I do. And so that does help as well. So all those little things that you talk about being able to peacefully coexist in this kind of, environment of collectors, investors, and the third one that I only can remember 2 of 3 at any point. Collectors, investors, and and players. So this kind of organism that we have of this Pokemon in general. I agree. It's all, you can do all of it. And that's really why it's a gray area thing. As you mentioned, it's fantastic. I'm really proud and pleased to be a part of such a wonderful community of people and possibilities. So.
Yes, me as well. And being able to have these conversations, I consider myself very, very lucky because, you were saying that you're a small fish in a pond. And as you know, my name relates to that fish. I'm even smaller fish in that pond. But Dave, one of the things that I have to talk to you about now with this big return, you really went about this in a very grandiose way because you collaborated with arguably the biggest Pokemon YouTuber out there, UnlistedLeaf. I got to know, how was that experience for you?
Well, the one thing that will never change about me, and I hope that I feel like people get this about me, is my humility. I do not care about success ever changing who I am. I do respond to every comment until I can't stay awake anymore. I do try to help people. I try to run a business where people can reach me one-on-one through my cell and we can talk and I can try to facilitate trades and things that they want. So it was no different with this gentleman, Ando. I have a good friend now there's your community, New Zealand. How far away could a good friend be further than New Zealand? But this gentleman is just a mover and shaker. He just hustles for his collection. And so he one day mentioned me to Ando. And that's how it all came about. Ando's like, yeah, right. And then of course, of all things, here's the part that you'll be the first, my exclusive story here. So this gentleman in New Zealand, Thomas Mendez, who had said to me, you need to buy these decks. I've got decks coming to you, these Japanese Nintendo 1999 decks, and they're going to be, you could be the first person to ever show them on your YouTube channel because I'm middling for him, stuff coming here and then going to New Zealand. So I get these cards, I do it, and he says, write it in there, do a video and tell everybody you were the first one. We ended up beating Ando by a week. So I put in the writing, in that I'm the first one to ever do it. And when Ando did it, I got everybody coming through saying he was wrong, you were the first one. Well, once Ando looked at possibly doing something with me, Thomas said, you need to quickly get to that video and change what it says. You weren't the first one and you didn't. And I wrote a whole poem saying Ando's wonderful, but I just got there a little sooner. He goes, change the lyrics of the poem, get everything positive about Ando. So I did that. And then lo and behold, as we went out a couple of weeks and Ando figured out that I was, I guess, from what he said, a real person with something real, to show. I always looking for a way to touch more people and touch more lives and, and that kind of thing. And so that was I took a shot and thought, why not coattail off one of the bigger folks to at least get a pop-up in my little channel and bring myself back that way. So.
Well, and as you said, Dave, it's so fantastic that we can do that we have the means to be able to connect with this vast array of influencers and collectors, investors, content creators. It's, the fact that we've been able to speak, multiple times now, and, same thing. I've got friends in Canada, over in Europe, in Australia. It's just a great time to be alive in this hobby. I truly think that there is a lot of negativity out there around the hobby, but when you really boil it down, there is so many, the positive aspects of being a part of this is, to me, far outweigh the negative.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. Especially when you're someone like me that as I've mentioned, I'm very reclusive, friendships come more difficult. The friends that I have and the people that I reach out to, and everybody is so kind and considerate. It has been the most amazing revelation and blessing of my life outside of my wife and my family. It is the most fun I've had in years. And I every day it's exciting to see who's reaching out and who I'm talking to, and it comes a lot from the new folks that are in the hobby as well. I mean, I do want to say that I think a lot of the newer folks, you're always going to have your haters and that kind of thing, but a lot of these newer folks are just they don't have a lot of the expectations, they don't have a lot of the self-interests in whatever.
Hmm.
And some of the older ones, not only by age, but maybe some of the older folks, and I'm typically not very political and I won't be, but I just always say to everybody, make your own opinions, meet your own people, create your own friendships. Don't let other people tell you what's right, what's wrong, what should be valued as what, because invariably there's a self-interest potential in that. So be objective, and as we both said, learn, experience, talk, make friendships, and collaborate with great people, because it makes for a wonderful result, not only financially, not only opportunistically, but most importantly in your heart. And
Hmm.
that's really the whole. That should be the bane of our existence. Happiness, and other than health, happiness should be really what's next.
Certainly. And I'm hoping that this whole period that we've gone through here through 2020 and through the pandemic, where we have been isolated, but at the same time, many people have formed these relationships, online or through some kind of medium, some kind of virtual medium. I'm hoping that when everything does normalize and come back to a sense of normalcy, that those bonds grow even deeper, that we can connect at maybe worlds or regional events, or just people can start traveling and maybe can just start visiting the friends that they've made over this last year or so. That would be amazing.
There's an expression that they'd say, from your mouth to God's ears. So I hope you're absolutely 100% right on. I think that would really be the icing on the cake of all of what's gone on, of these bonds and friendships that have been made. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, we will see, but I think there's a lot of exciting things in the future. I know I've got things planned for when we do go back to that to a little bit more normal and we can get out more. I've got some projects and things planned to really connect with the community on a deeper level, and I'm pretty sure you probably do as well, Dave. Which kind of brings me to my last question here for you. You've come back onto YouTube. What's next? What can we expect next from David Persin, and what can people look forward to?
Well, I think that's a great question. But first, I think we're going to have to get an on air commitment from you that when you get out in the community, because the pandemic has ended, that whatever you're going to do to create and cultivate this friendship type of situation and businesses and everything, somehow you're going to involve me in it somewhere, right? You're going to call me. You're going to say, Uncle Dave, I want you to know I'm doing this, and if you'd like to come out and visit me or something, I know I'm going to be a part of that, right? For sure.
Oh, of course, of course.
Okay.
I guess I was just nervous to ask because I thought, again, small, little fish in a big pond. But no, absolutely. That is really my number one goal, is to not only be able to connect with the wider community, but especially the people that have been so kind-hearted to me, that have come onto the podcast, that have reached out to me, has been so helpful. Certainly, being able
Yeah.
to connect with all of you.
All right, fair enough. Then you've deserved an answer. You've earned an answer to your question now. So I'll move ahead with that. Thank you. So my goal at this point is to make it a priority to try to continue to be more systematic in putting a bit more content out for folks, so that they can enjoy and learn from. Maybe most importantly, I call it. Some people call it edutainment or whatever, educational entertainment. But that is my goal: is to start showing everything from the collection. I have been working hard amongst all the different purchases I've made recently. So to try to get my collection organized from beginning to end, and start to move on through it from base set right on through, show all the variants, show some error cards people have never seen, show some promo cards that, people have really never seen on a video yet, show the rarest American set that's an actual set. I'm not sure that's ever been shown on video yet. So I am going to show all those things very soon and start to pump on through all the sets to give people a flavor of what I've been doing for the last 15, 16, 17 years, if not longer, as well as, you know, I'm going to keep pushing. The one thing I'll always push is just because I try to be reasonable and fair, but I think people are looking for folks that are reputable to buy from. I do have the website up and running now, and I am working my butt off to try to get stuff listed, because I've got 3 and 4 of every single card from all the early sets, and in different conditions to appeal to everybody's budget, which I love to do. And so I am trying to, I always say, get it sold at some point so that my wife and I can settle into our 60s in some reasonable level. I can never be Pokemon King Gary. God bless the gentleman. I can never be, as you know, he's just the most amazing guy. And he's so consumed with all that stuff. I don't want to look in his storage facility. So I need to simplify and get rid of all of the excess that is not my collection. And I'm offering everybody the opportunity to find some really unique things out there that I hope that they'll find too. So that is one of the other goals, is to try to keep, I know people are clamoring, please get more stuff out there, but it's just hard to do it all. And I'm trying the best I can.
Well, I know I'm certainly looking forward to it, Dave. You know, and you are I'm really excited to see the content that you produce on YouTube, as well as the products that you're going to get out there into people's hands, and into their homes and into their collections. But you are such an amazing storyteller. That's through our previous conversation and today. You are an amazing storyteller. And I would love to see, you know, just from my own personal perspective, I would love to see the backstories and just that whole storytelling process of all of these cards that you've garnered throughout the years, and everything that went into it. Because I think you're one of the better voices out there. I mean, obviously, based upon the vastness of this collection, you can probably tell those stories better than most.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I always welcome folks like you who bring an intellectual capability, a very strong, you know, industry background and perspective, and just great feedback. So I very much appreciate that. And I think that I need to try to weave those stories more or into the things I'm showing. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I hope that I can do that. So.
Well, I have no doubt, Dave. I have no doubt. But hey, my friend, I truly, truly appreciate you coming back on here. A huge congratulations on finally being able to complete these World Trophy cards. Such an amazing accomplishment. And like I said, I know this podcast was really short notice, very quick after you had actually made your video, but I wanted to try to do my part as well of being able to get this huge news out there to as many people as I could. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today, and I wish you the absolute best of luck moving forward.
Okay, bud. Thank you for having me, and my best to everyone in the hobby. You know, keep catching them all, guys. That's what we're all here to do. Keep having fun. Enjoy. Thanks.
Excellent. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this Pokemon Masterclass. We will see you all next time. Take care, everybody.